Hey guys, Level Cap here, and right now as this video posts, we are about 15 hours away from the launch of Battlefield 4, at least for the people living in the US and other parts of the world. I'm sorry for the people who have weird release dates and aren't getting the game till the 31st. There are some weird ways around it. I'm not advocating these ways, but if you're willing to take a few risks, there are certain things you can do. I would suggest checking Reddit if you are curious. Now that being said, I have some more Flood Zone gameplay for you. I flew a lot of Little Bird during Flood Zone, and I go on a pretty ridiculous kill streak here. You're going to see me just fly a lot, get hit by a lot of stingers, and manage to recover from it. I have KYR Speedy in the passenger seat. He was repping me the whole time and firing RPGs at guys on rooftops, actually getting some good kills while he was at it. Now, as we're on the verge of the latest and potentially greatest Battlefield game ever made, I find myself in sort of a reminiscing mood. I want to look back on the previous titles and sort of the history of the Battlefield franchise, as I consider it to be a pretty rich history. Now, the first Battlefield game, Battlefield 1942, came out in the year 2002 before anybody had any idea who DICE was, and it came out for PC only, so that's where you kind of get this stigma of it being sort of a PC elitist community. But I think that's going to really change with this title. I've played the next-gen consoles, and although I can't tell you too much about it, I can tell you that on release day tomorrow, we're going to have some exclusive next-gen footage from me of the Xbox One, and then shortly after that you're going to get some PS4 multiplayer gameplay. And I can tell you from playing it, even though I pretty much suck on consoles because I'm not very good with controller, that visually speaking and server-wise speaking, the game is very, very similar to the PC launch. You get the 64 players, you're going to get nice high frame rates, the graphics are still really good. In fact, a lot of the people I was playing with were having trouble differentiating the graphics on console versus PC. Now I've got kind of a finely tuned eye for that, and I can say that the visuals on PC are better, but that's not to say that the visuals on console are not bad. They're incredibly good. And this is a huge deal for the Battlefield community and the future development of Battlefield, because we no longer have that wedge separating the PC community from the console community. And I've always hated that aspect of the Battlefield games, is the whole PC elitist mentality, and that's become kind of a stigma of the Battlefield series. Is if you play on console, you're going to get PC elitists telling you that the game is not as good on console, and unfortunately, in many ways, objectively speaking, it just wasn't as good. You couldn't play as many players, the graphics weren't as good, all this stuff, and finally we're getting rid of those restrictions on the console. You now get those 64 players, you now get the high frame rate, and the game modes are going to be virtually identical between console and PC. So that is just such a great thing to have finally achieved with the Battlefield games, because they've been pretty complex. They've required in-depth physics engines, and having 64 players requires some serious processing power. And the next-gen consoles are going to have octa-cores, and they should be able to handle those 64-player games with no problem. It's been only a few days, over 2 years, since Battlefield 3 was launched on October 25th, 2011, and we're getting Battlefield 4 on October 29th, 2013. And it's been a huge build-up. You know, 2 years is a long time to wait, but we have had a lot of extremely good expansions, not to mention the replayability of Battlefield 3 and the longevity of the multiplayer servers is kind of unprecedented. There's not a lot of games that can really boast about their server populations 2 years after launch, and I gotta say, Battlefield 3 server populations are still going strong. Now, obviously, the BF4 launch is going to probably cripple most of those servers. I'm sure there will still be a lot of BF3 players after the BF4 launch, but having a 2-year downtime in between titles means that each title has to be good. You can't have a bad title and then just say, oh, well, we'll fix everything with the next one. You gotta put in your time, you gotta make sure the game is up and running to spec, you gotta make sure it's balanced, you gotta make sure you're not upsetting the player base with any sort of ridiculous additions to the game. And I gotta say, BF4 is spot on. The devs really did their job. The bugs seem to be very well ironed out from the demo that I was playing, and the weapon balance, the way that the game plays out, seems to be similar enough to the previous title, but with enough new additions to keep it fresh and interesting. Now the point I mentioned before in my first flood zone video, which I'm going to have to reiterate in this video because it's such an important point, is the map design has simply just become so much better. Not only have the Levolution events added that extra little bit of interestingness to fights and changing up the map, but simply the map design and the visuals seem to have had a lot more time put into them and balanced. It looks like the devs have actually played these maps a lot prior to launch to make sure that they flow right. And it is true, Battlefield 4 does have limited destruction. You can't just blow up every single building. Now that we're playing in larger cities that have skyscrapers and 30 stories, it would simply be too much of a computing feat to be able to destroy every single giant building or blow out the walls on every single tall skyscraper. So we are going to be limited in some respects like that. On the other hand, we are going to maintain a good flow and balance to the map. Whereas in games like Bad Company 2, where you could take down every single building in a city, by the end of a round sometimes you would have no alleyways or pathing. It would simply just be a flat city of ruins. So it kind of destroyed some of the flow of the gameplay when you were able to destroy everything. So there's pros and cons to a full destruction system and a partial destruction system, and I really think Battlefield 4 is finding the perfect balance between those. A welcome addition to the Battlefield 4 series is the new variety of rocket launchers. Now Bad Company 2 had a nice variety of rocket launchers. Battlefield 3 had a pretty limited variety. You had the RPG Small, which is pretty much one and the same. You had Stingers and Iglas, again one and the same, and then you had the Javelin. So essentially you only had 3 different kinds of rocket launchers: a dumbfire, a lock-on air, and then a lock-on ground, which could also lock on air if something was laser targeted. Now you have a massive variety of weapons that are dumbfire. You have multiple dumbfire rockets. You have wire-guided rockets, which don't require lock-on and are highly skill-based. Then you have your standard ground-to-air lock-ons. You have your standard ground-to-ground lock-ons. You have different laser targeting systems that are going to be more readily available and easier to use. There's even a pickup-only rocket launcher, and this is really important not just because it makes the engineer class more interesting and more useful, but because there needs to be more tools, more weaponry to fight vehicles in Battlefield, and I think we're finally getting that. So vehicles, once people become familiar with all the different kinds of rocket launchers, vehicles are just not going to have the same sort of advantage that they have had in Battlefield 3. The large variety of grenade types now is going to play a very big role in how you essentially approach buildings, clear buildings, and take out your enemies. Do you want to throw a grenade into a room and try and get a kill with it? Do you want to throw a flashbang in there and guaranteed blind everybody but not necessarily guarantee that you're going to kill them if you run in there? Do you want to throw an incendiary round in there and basically take that room off limits for a while, force everybody to have to run out of there, and also obstruct vision? So you have a lot of new options, and any class can equip any grenade, so that's kind of an exciting addition. There's also some wildcards that we're really just going to have to see how they play out once the game is launched. Remote mortars could be incredibly overpowered in the right situations, and I'm not sure how that's going to work out. The attack boats are incredibly powerful vehicles, especially if you have 4 guys on them and 1 guy repping with 2 guys on miniguns. I mean, there's just so many options you have with those vehicles. The Little Birds have become so much more lethal, giving their passengers full range to fire rockets, lock on rockets, and deal with infantry on the ground. So you just really have a lot of variables in there that we've never really seen in Battlefield games before, and I can't wait to see how they're going to play out, and I actually look forward to the balancing process and sort of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Either way, we're all going to get to see firsthand what's going on very shortly, and I can't wait to see this for myself. If you guys want to stay tuned to my channel, you're going to get some cool info on weapon stats, balancing, map strategies, vehicle strategies. All that stuff is coming on my channel very soon. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.